This week on Behind the Pulpit, today, history is made. This is the first ever crossover episode of our 2 weekly podcasts here on the NBC Unhindered YouTube channel. Johnny and Felicity join the panel today from the Fresh Wave podcast.
For youth, by youth, and Johnny
is our tagline, which we just love to kick off every episode with.
By the way, Tim, I tell you, we don't have a tagline for Behind the Pulpit. We still need to get one. What is
fun
this?
As you think.
Do you want the curse of having to announce it every week?
Yeah, that's not the curse. That's how you brand. It's called branding. It's not a curse.
Along with getting their first taste of the great book war, Johnny and Felicity, who helped to weigh in on a couple of news stories like the bridge collapse in Baltimore and the collision of Easter and Transgender Visibility Day.
The post from our governmental officials said that we recognize you and see that you're made in the image of God. And that very same verse in Genesis chapter 1 continues and says, who made them male and female. That's the verse that you chose to quote for your Transgender Day of Visibility. Why don't you read the verse all the way to the end of the verse?
And of course, we will discuss Pastor Bob's sermon from Easter Sunday and tie it all up with an Easter-themed theology sprint that you're not going to want to miss.
I had several people come up to me and say that they were in tears.
They were in tears because they couldn't find Waldo?
Kind of.
Where is he?
I see Waldo in the back. There he is.
Wherever you may be watching or listening to this today, we hope you're having a wonderful day. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's crossover edition of Behind the Pulpit.
Hey there, welcome to Behind the Pulpit for April the 2nd, 2024. We're so glad that you're joining us. I can't believe we are in April already. The first quarter is done.
Believe it.
And we have leapfrogged April Fool's Day, and it is April the 2nd. And guess what? We have news today. The man himself has come out of the tomb. Like Lazarus, he rises.
There it is.
Pastor Dave is here.
Rise up.
He's alive. He is. You know, I remember if you're a fan of the skit guys. The skit guys have a whole skit where they go around and they play off of Lazarus. Have you seen this one? And their big bit in there is Lazarus. He came out and it says that he smelled.
He
like
stinketh.
Lazarus stinketh.
Yes.
But Dave took a shower before he came here today, so it's doing good.
Yeah.
We're in a small room.
How are you doing? How was your week last week? Wasn't so good, huh? You were just like
the last week in my life stinketh big time. It was not enjoyable. Getting over the flu, I feel much better. Thank you guys so much for filling all the holes and all the gaps. And I've never been sick before in my life on Holy Week and have to miss Easter as a pastor. Man. That's a little bit of a bummer. Like I could have got sick on a lot of other weeks.
50
well, I'll tell you what.
weeks.
So I remember going back now. Easter of 2020 was when we had the first COVID wave, and I had to go out for Easter. So maybe every 4 years this will happen to one of us.
We'll get it out of our
maybe
system.
Not. There you go.
I'm just happy to be feeling better. So it's good to be back.
Well, we're glad to have you
here.
back. We got some special guests. You want to introduce them today, Pastor Dave?
We do. We have a very special guest to my immediate right, number 3 in the Henschel clan.
Number 3. Can we just call you number 3 for the whole episode? Number 3.
The youngest of the children. Felicity is in the house. Behind the Pulpit.
Woo! Let's go.
Wow. This is like a special elite club you're part of.
I know.
Now.
We should have mentioned we're doing a Fresh Wave and Behind the Pulpit crossover. Like the worlds are colliding right now.
Cross-pollination.
The viewers can't handle themselves.
Yeah. And like when you do the introduction for Fresh Wave, it's always by youth, for youth, and Johnny. So like, and Johnny, he's here too. Johnny's he's like the footnote in the whole thing. There you go. Johnny Graves, we're so glad you guys are joining us today. How does it feel to be on the set in the middle? Because normally you guys are on the side when you have guests, right?
It feels odd. I feel like I'm going to get interviewed and questioned.
Like it's weird to be so close together. Like,
get ready.
Close like that. Yeah, it's exciting. I don't know if it's more stressful or less stressful.
Well, I don't know.
We'll find out as we go.
We'll find out. We were joking before that I thought you guys actually really outlined and detailed your episodes, and we just came in here. We're like, what are we going to talk about today? I mean, we have a general order of stuff, but
should we spill our secret?
Yeah, no,
don't map it out.
The magicians don't never share their tricks.
No outlines. We got an outline that we modify. All right. Well, anyway, we're glad that you're joining us for this Behind the Pulpit Fresh Wave crossover, brought to you by, who should our sponsor be today? We should do that.
Sponsored by
Where's Waldo? And what's the publishing company? By HarperCollins. Candlewick Press. There you go. We'll get to Waldo in just a second.
Not an actual sponsor. Not an actual sponsor.
Gonna get sued. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what's coming up in the life of our church body for the announcement body life segment. What do you got for me, Tim? Surprise me. Oh, my goodness. Scuba. My daughter, so listen, my daughter was telling me the other day, she goes, when is VBS going to be? And I said, sometime in the summer. People were signing up. She goes, what's the theme? I said, you know what? I should know that. She goes, it's scuba. Like she knew. So they did a good job of promoting the scuba, theme for the year. Awesome. Diving into friendship with God. So registration is now opened. I got word today that we are already half full for the week. So if you want to register your kid for VBS, do so immediately. Go and put a pause on this video and go right to our website and sign up.
You really need to get your name on that list.
You do.
The spots are going fast. Are you going to help this year? Are you going to do some motions? Are you going to do some Bible teaching? Are you going to be part of it?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Currently praying about it.
Currently deciding if I'm up for the challenge.
There you go. It's intense. Johnny always handles the 5th and 6th graders every week. I did that for a few years when I first got here, and then Johnny took over. And I was the most tired after that week. Nothing else wipes me out like the VBS with the 5th and 6th
Every
graders.
week, it's like Wednesday, and I'm looking at whoever I'm teaching, and we're sitting there just like eyes in the back of our heads. Like we got 2 more days. It's exhausting. It
is.
It's a very fun week.
It's only 9 to 12.
It is. It's 9 to 12. Love it, but it's exhausting for sure.
Yeah, it's worth it though.
Yeah,
it's worth it
for sure.
So
scuba.
All right, so that's number 1. What's coming up next?
Oh, you didn't.
Well, there we go. So we
What
got
is
some
this?
guests here that
Love
can
the
talk
free
about
press.
What is this?
We will
the
take
rummage
the free press.
sale. What is this? What's this all
Can you
about?
define the word rummage? What qualifies?
I'm going to look it up
Not
right
trash.
now.
Don't
Not
bring your trash.
Not a trash sale. Rummage sale.
Rummage.
Let's see. Rummage
There's a
definition.
difference.
I'm
That's
looking
rubbish.
It up. Rummage. Rummage is it's an intransitive verb to
It's fluid.
to search thoroughly by handling, turning over, or disarranging the contents of.
So
And
these are
that's
things
what-
you
through
thoroughly
Rummaging through, that's
inspect.
like more the verb.
To make an
You're gonna
energetic,
thoroughly go
usually
through your
hasty
house.
search. I don't know.
Yes, that's exactly.
What is this event, guys?
Yeah, so
That's the
we're
verb. Let me look at that noun.
we are super excited, as we always are.
Always super excited.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, that was the verb. The noun version of it is this: a confused, miscellaneous collection.
Bring us your confused goods. Things that seem out of place in your home.
Or B was items for sale at a rummage sale. Thanks.
Perfect.
Guys, the viewers are confused right now. So what are we talking about? What is
Yes.
this thing?
Get
What
us
is
back
this?
on track.
What's the point of this event?
Yes, so I don't think we've done this before. I don't know. Maybe Millington has done this before in the distant past. But what we're going to be doing is a rummage sale fundraiser for our missions trip coming up. So we are going to be going to the Dominican Republic this year.
Can't wait. 40 people.
40 people.
40 people.
And we've been thinking about ways to fundraise for this trip, and this is kind of a big one. So this is something that we want to do. It's going to be on April 20th. So if you're listening, go through your house. Don't donate trash like we were talking about before.
Yes, please.
But we're accepting clothes, furniture, decor, whatever you think could sell. And then all those proceeds are going to be going to our missions trip.
You know, trash is in the eye of the beholder there. So, one person's trash is another person's treasure.
Do not listen to anything Bob is saying right now. So if you have something of value, it's got to hurt a little bit for you
Not
to bring it
broken.
over to the
Okay.
church
All
and
right.
say, you know what, I want this to be sold at the rummage sale.
Could you just
for-
think, would somebody want this?
Yes.
Exactly.
And if the answer is no, then don't bring it.
Maybe
Like-
the dumpster is your better choice.
Yeah.
We do have a dumpster.
Pastor
as well.
Bob, take a look at your Star Wars shelf and choose something off there to bring to the rummage
You'll
sale.
be happy with
Sure.
Pastor Dave. They're finishing up my basement, and I did have to finally brought my boxes of books down,
Yeah.
and I did throw away a couple boxes of books that
that's painful.
I will not be using.
How come you didn't check with me
Purge.
about this?
You wouldn't have wanted
You couldn't
these
have
books.
first
These were
dibs?
like old books. They weren't,
Old books are my favorite
they were not
kind.
theology books. So don't
Pastor
worry.
Dave,
They weren't Jonathan Edwards.
when you weren't here last week, he kind of went out of control. He
This is not surprising at all.
he
He's out of control when I'm
he
here.
asked Lenore what the thesis of a book was.
Okay.
He started bringing out all these technical book terms when you weren't here to keep him in check.
Tim,
She handled it well. Yeah.
I can't control this guy. He's already got 3 books in front of him right now. One of them is like really big and red. We'll get to it.
I'm going
Anyway,
to give you a task later on.
Rummage
sale.
Good items,
Yes.
quality items. We don't want your junk.
We don't want your junk. The sale is going to be...
That'd be hashtag we don't want your
We
junk.
want everything to go. Like,
Bring us your
Yes.
stuff, not your junk.
yeah.
Saturday, April 20th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we're going to be donating. You can donate stuff for the 2 weeks before that. So I think that's April 8th through the 18th.
Monday to Thursday.
You give
Monday
some,
to
I
Thursday.
see you do
Office
give some
hours.
direction down here about donating, and you say clothes. Can you give us like some parameters on the clothes? Like, there's certain items of clothing we probably don't want you to donate, right? It's outerwear.
Yes. Make sure that it is not underwear, but
Oh, my
you
goodness.
put the clothes on the outside.
There it is.
Clothes that
All
are
right.
washed.
Washed, preferably, no stains.
Please launder your clothes before you come.
Yikes.
All right. Okay. Good.
It's gonna be
do we have
awesome.
other announcements, or have we exhausted
Exceeded
this?
our time
Is there another
slot.
one?
The announcements have been exhausted.
All right. Good. I'm good because I'm getting tired of the
Announcing
announcements.
things. That's enough. Our church
All
doesn't
right.
need to know anything
Well,
else.
anyway, so let's go into. So we have Johnny and Felicity here. They are the hosts of the Fresh Wave. Usually, if we have guests, we give them the chance to just tell us a bit about yourselves and what's going on in your ministries. I'm sure you have a lot to share. So the floor is yours for
And what
a few minutes here.
is the Fresh Wave?
That's true.
Yeah.
So people that are watching this maybe haven't seen the Fresh Wave. We're going to go on and be in the center for the Fresh Wave immediately following this. So what is it?
There it is.
Where did it come from? Is that
This
shouldn't
is
it,
the
shouldn't it be
Fresh
this?
Wave.
Should it be this?
Symbol. Hand motion. Fresh Wave is our
Boom.
podcast we started up in the fall, and it is
For
For
youth,
youth.
by youth, and Johnny.
is our tagline, which we
Yes.
just love to kick off every episode with.
By the way, Tim, I
Yes.
tell you, we don't have a tagline for Behind the Pulpit. We still need to get one. What
Not as
is
fun
this?
as you think it is.
I see all the they all have taglines. We need a
to the
tagline
pulpit, from the pulpit.
from the
Now
pulpit.
we are
By the
behind the
pulpit.
pulpit.
Do you want the
From to
curse of
behind.
having
Johnny
to
just came
announce
up with
it
it in
every
2
week?
seconds.
Yeah, that's not the curse. That's how you brand. It's called branding. It's not a curse.
I thought we have one. It's in the.
What is it?
It's like community updates,
Okay,
news,
can you
and
you can't even
sermon
tell me what it is.
recaps.
That's got to be
Community
memorable.
Update, sermon.
Oh, dude, Baby Groot's still here. Bring him
BTP.
over. Yes, toss me. Oh, just hit him in the head. Baby Groot and Waldo.
closed my
Right
eyes.
here.
It's hard to
Here
see
we
over
go.
the
I
screens
braced
over here.
myself.
Baby Groot. Hey, Baby Groot made his appearance last week, Dave, when you weren't here. Came back for the
I've seen him
anniversary.
before.
I know. It was for the anniversary
Oh,
episode,
okay.
which you missed.
Oh, it's 1 year?
Yeah.
What? You know what?
You missed the
Wow.
1 year
Okay,
anniversary.
we're
How
gonna
dare
come
you.
back to this after we do the thing. So I had
It's a
the
serious
question for
celebration.
Tim after that. All right,
been
Fresh
1
Wave.
year.
keep going. Fresh
Fresh
Wave.
Wave.
A year ago,
Keep
this
going.
was like a white thing.
Yeah,
was.
light blue. So Fresh Wave, we kicked off the idea in the summer. We were gearing up for the year. Lord had big plans, and one of those ideas we wanted to do was run a podcast, run on YouTube, because that's where a lot of teens are, students are, and we said, well, let's go where the teens are, right? As they say, let's not always try to get them where we are, but let's try to go to them as well. So that's what we tried to do with the Fresh Wave, is create a podcast where we talk about different topics, different things that teenagers go through, and we invite teenagers onto the show to share their perspectives, share their life a little bit. It's been great.
So
Yeah.
what's going on with the teens? Maybe Felicity can answer that. Like,
Sure.
what do you
Gen
feel like is
Z.
the burning questions that are
Yes.
happening right now?
Oh, you mean like questions that our generation might have, or what's going on
Well,
with
when
our
you bring
youth
them on,
group?
like, what do they want to talk about?
Yeah, so our season 1 was kind of bringing them on to talk about whatever they wanted to talk about.
Okay,
And we experienced like,
whatever.
so many
you didn't veto
people.
anything.
yeah,
Just
any
whatever.
I don't
biblical
think we did veto anything.
topic. No,
Talk
I
about it.
don't
So
think
they picked,
we did
they
veto
picked
anything.
good topics.
They picked
They picked
it
wonderful
wasn't like let's
topics.
talk about the flicker thing or
No.
You give us like
Spinners,
a handful
you know.
of examples
Yeah.
of what?
Yeah, so we talked about help me. We talked about prayer,
We talked
temptation.
about prayer. We talked about identity.
Yeah,
Whoa.
patience.
Insecurity, patience.
Yeah, and that's among other things. So season 1 was great. We had so many teens wanting to come on and share their stories and share what God was teaching them. That
Okay.
was awesome.
Okay.
So season 1 went really well. Season 2, we are kind of laying out topics beforehand and then seeing which teens want to come on to talk about that topic.
Okay.
Specifically
What are the
over
topics?
specifically over theological topics. So we wanted to kind of get some basic core Christian beliefs into the hands of those watching. So we kind of asked, who is Jesus? Who is God? What is the church? What is the Bible? What is the gospel? So I wanted to kind of get out some core beliefs
Yeah.
and talk about those.
Yeah, but overall it's been really fun. And
But do you have
everyone's wanted
book
to be on it.
recommendations? That's the question.
But we do not have book recommendations.
No.
We do have
We
one
don't
that
read.
We do reference one book. We do reference one book every Fresh Wave.
Okay.
Always the Bible. So we
I don't even know.
we recommend the number one bestseller
Yes.
each,
a good
each
choice.
week.
Which
Yeah.
version?
Tim, you always put the Bible verses in there. What
It's
is the
typically
most
the
used
ESV,
version?
but the most difficult
ESV.
part is when someone brings a different version, and I'm
Spending
I'm
hours.
spending hours
Tim
on
is
Bible
flat-footed
reference
over there.
to figure out what version of the Bible.
NASB, NLT, NIV, Holman Christian.
We have had
CSB.
so many questions about Bible versions, right?
That is that, and
It's
the
been one of the FAQs.
the unpardonable sin, which hopefully I answered last week.
Yeah, we're all
or
clear
2
on
weeks
that.
ago, whenever that was.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, good. All right.
Yeah.
Well, one might say that all topics are inherently theological, but these are the ones that,
That is
really
right.
talking about systematic doctrines currently and other kind of practical theology
Correct.
applications, identity, and those other things you mentioned.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's seen a lot of success.
So you're making your way through these theological topics. You're not finished.
No, we're not. We're not.
You got a long way to
finished.
go.
Dude, I just got
That's
an
right.
email from Johnny right now. Upcoming
You
dates,
know
rush
what?
updates inside.
It is Tuesday.
Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Here it comes.
It's like I'm not typing anything right now. But yeah, Fresh Wave's been great.
Stop sending me emails when I'm in a meeting with you.
You're right. While we're being recorded. But yeah, Fresh Wave's been fun. Been a great time doing that.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
just
this year has been awesome too.
year in general.
Yeah. This year we've seen a lot of revival among our teens, so that's been super cool. And the Fresh Wave has just kind of partnered with us through that, so it's been awesome.
Yeah, it's just cool
it's a
to.
fresh wave.
It is
Fresh-
a fresh,
it is a
indeed
fresh
fresh
wave.
wave.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of, I feel like sometimes youth group in the past could be very receiving, so people can kind of just come and receive. But with the Fresh Wave, is really prompting students to be active, be producers in their faith, and we're seeing that take place on the Fresh Wave. We're seeing it take place on Wednesdays. We're seeing,
Yeah.
unprompted prayer take place after Sunday school and youth group. Just there's a lot of
great.
action taking place on people's faith, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Unprompted prayer has got to be a nice thing for a youth director to see.
Yeah.
Usually you're
Yes.
pulling teeth and
So things are
Yeah.
happening.
dragging
People were just
people to
saying, let's pray
prayer.
for
Yeah.
you right now.
Yeah, like even this past
That's what we've
Wednesday.
been doing
Yeah.
this year.
That's good.
We've been doing a lot of let's just pray right now.
In the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been like our thing this year. It's been
Yeah.
awesome.
It's great.
All
Awesome.
about it.
So check out the Fresh Wave for more episodes that concern theology and other topics. So
Yeah.
thanks for being on our show today.
Theology and other
Yeah.
topics. All right.
Cool.
Cool. All right. So it's that time, Pastor Dave.
I see you're ready.
These are in reserve as usual.
Uh-huh.
They're going to be unveiled on the Fresh Wave podcast.
Right.
But I have recommended one of these before, so
You have.
yeah. Do you want to recommend one? I mean, you had lots of time to read last week, didn't you? So you probably have a book at
Yeah,
the
the
ready.
whole week to just sit and read. And
I was doing no reading. No reading. I'll let you recommend, man. So it looks like you got quite a few options. So what are you going to choose?
Well, maybe okay. So we'll tease the Fresh Wave, and I'll say this will be my recommendation for today. This is a book called Creeds, Confessions, and Catechisms, a Reader's Edition, edited by Chad Van Dixhorn. So if you really want to dig into the historic creeds, catechisms, confessions of the faith, if that is you, which I imagine is not that many of you, but if that is you, I will say it is important though. It's actually kind of a sad, like this is the reason, these were things that captured what our four people thought about the faith, and they're really important. This is a great resource to do that. They give you a little bit of a background on the creed and how it came about, and then actually has the creed in there. So if you want to study it, this is a great book right there.
good recommendation.
It is. Well, Tim always likes to say Pastor Dave's tagline is, you got to dig into a creed. So if you want to dig into a creed, this is the book to start digging
Dig
with.
into a
to
creed
all
and
those, all
let's
those
be that
bots out
church.
there, read away.
Read away.
I like it.
Boom. Well, maybe they'll become saved. Maybe they'll regenerate bots. There you go.
Can bots
Tim
be
is
saved?
cringing.
Did you talking
We'll
about
find out.
Can C-A-N or Ken bots K-E-N?
Is this a Barbie shout out? Ken bots.
That's what I thought I heard. Ken bots. Ken bots.
Ken bots.
Loving the Kenergy here.
All right. Anyway, Anything else for the books? Do you guys have any books? Oh, you told me you don't read before, so we're not going to do
We
any
don't
books.
read.
We don't read. We've thought about it
Slowly
though.
working our way through C.S. Lewis book.
Thought about it. Yeah.
I started one of Pastor Dave's recommendations yesterday.
All right. I
That's
see
right.
you.
That's right.
The Christian Manifesto by Alistair Begg.
There you
Mr.
go.
Begg.
I had a hard time putting
Sermon
it
on
down,
the
The
but I
old
had
Scott.
to.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Next segment.
He got into some trouble since I recommended that.
Very
book.
famous segment. We're on
Alistair
to
Yeah.
our In the News segment. All right, so in the news. Is anything happening in the news? I always ask that every week. What's going on in the larger culture? So I got a couple things, and maybe you can add in here, Pastor Dave. If I heard by the end of the week, at least you were watching TV last week, so maybe you saw a couple news stories.
I did watch the news. I was somewhat transfixed by the story about the bridge down Francis Scott Key Bridge.
It is.
down
You know,
in
it
the
happened
Baltimore
just as
area.
we were ending last week, so we didn't get to mention it. So we should talk about this.
Man, what was that? Tuesday morning?
It must have been Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
It was early morning, like 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I think.
And
The
you
boat
see
hit
that
the bridge
boat lose
and just
power and
boom.
then gain power and then lose power and then gain power and then I was listening to like the frequencies from the police and the fire radio signals that were going out saying, okay, stop all the traffic on the bridge, and like they gave them like a minute warning
Wow.
to stop the cars from crossing. And evidently there were no cars that plunged into
Really?
the ocean
I don't think I
that,
knew
that
that.
could have very well been on this bridge.
people got to leave and got off the bridge.
Oh, so they
Yeah.
did it.
Because
they got enough
Wow.
So
warning,
like in
yeah.
the nick of time, like 60
Yeah.
seconds
Oh my
warning.
gosh.
But of course, I think it
Wow.
was 6 people who were working on the bridge did unfortunately plunge into the cold waters there. 2 of them were
Yeah,
immediately
of the
rescued, and then 4 of them didn't make it. So that's the last
Yeah.
I heard about that story. But it's just a tragic story about
It's
the
crazy.
brevity of life and how fragile life is. And,
Yeah.
you think about just going over a bridge like it's no big deal, but then, wow.
Mm.
I mean, anything could happen. Life can be so short and transient at times. So
Yeah.
it just
You
kind of
never know.
reminded me of how quick things can change
Yeah.
in this world. So did
Yeah.
you guys see that story?
I did.
Disturbing?
Awful. Yeah.
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 Alex and I were talking about it.
Yeah.
It's like one of our worst fears.
Bridges?
Falling
Yeah.
off the bridge.
Like we were talking about how we have a fear of like man-made objects
Oh.
submerged in water.
I've heard Alex talk about this.
I know.
Yeah.
And we both have this fear. Like that
There's
is
a
my
big
worst
man-made
nightmare.
object submerged in,
I know.
in that.
That is a big man-made
body of
object.
That's a
water.
very
Scary.
specific phobia right there.
It is.
Man-made
Then
objects. So,
it
so she's
is.
never getting on a submersible or a submarine.
No, and neither would I. Ugh. Like even if I see like a balloon in the ocean, it freaks me out. It's just unnatural.
I go to the Outer
A
Banks every
balloon.
year.
Okay.
I go to the Outer Banks every year. Maybe you guys took this when you went a few years ago. And there's a bridge called the Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
Yep.
Yes.
The really-
Super
the
long.
long one,
it's,
right?
It's
Yep.
yeah. It's bridge tunnel, bridge tunnel, bridge tunnel.
Right.
It's like you're there for like half an hour. It
Right.
feels like. So now when I go, it's just going to be like
Yeah.
You can
Miserable.
have people.
I'm
You can
out
pay
here
people to drive
over
you
the
over
water
that.
for a long
so
time.
long. What's that, Tim?
You can pay to have people drive your car for you over the bridge because people are
That
too scared to
specific
drive.
bridge?
Really?
Yeah.
I
What?
learned about
long.
this.
Wow.
There's like Uber people ready to go.
Yeah.
Like
That's wild.
Apparently, there's a free one, but you have to do it you have to register months in advance,
Oh
and
my
someone
gosh.
from the government will do it. But yeah, you can just pay like $100, and someone will hop in your car and drive over for you.
Well,
Wow.
valid fear. Valid fear.
Well, I will tell you, after this bridge collapsed, I was telling my wife, and she said, if you can possibly avoid a bridge, do it. I said, if you're going over a river, you have to cross a bridge. She's like, I don't know, figure out another way. I'm like,
Tunnels.
are we going to buy a helicopter? I don't know.
yeah. So
Well, the
tragic
problem
story.
was that and this is why like infrastructure has been a debate. There's a lot of other bridges that have problems that haven't been fixed in the U.S., which is one of the reasons why this one
Was
apparently collapsed.
Was it a bridge problem or a huge boat?
I thought the bridge was
well,
in good shape, but the boat.
maybe the bridge would have survived if it was
Really?
in better
Oh,
shape
wow.
on the boat.
Okay.
I
But
think
I'm just
so.
there's other ones that
Yeah,
have
yeah,
cracks
yeah.
and things
Yeah.
that need to be repaired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Oh my
haven't
goodness.
happened, you know.
That's
So
crazy.
They were built back
Horrifying.
in the days of Andrew Carnegie and just still have not been
no, this
updated.
one was built in '77.
Yeah.
It was in good shape.
There's
I-
others. There's other bridges.
There are.
Wow.
There's problems.
That's crazy.
But sad story. Certainly a reminder about
Yeah.
Hevel. The fact
Very
that
true.
life
It's
is
bad.
here and then it's
Hevel.
gone,
Very
and
true.
Yeah.
we have to make sure we're ready to meet with our Maker.
yeah.
Okay.
You never know.
All right. Other story. Easter Sunday. was transposed with some interesting commentary going on social media. So apparently March 31st is the Transgender Day of Visibility that was declared a couple years ago, and this year it happened to fall on Easter Sunday. And so there was a lot of emphasis on the Transgender Day of Visibility and de-emphasis on Easter, which I don't know what you think about all that, but I would just say it's really interesting to think that that's kind of where the current cultural conversation is, that this is one thing has been elevated and one thing has been kind of lowered. And then also, you were telling me about the thing with the St. Patrick's Cathedral on Saturday, you said?
There was an Easter vigil that was interrupted by some protesters there talking about the issues with Hamas. So, yeah, that was a little bit, disturbing to interrupt a normal Christian celebration, Christian holiday like that. The ironic thing I found about the Transgender Day of Visibility is that the post from our wonderful governmental officials said that we recognize you and see that you're made in the image of God. And that very same verse in Genesis chapter 1 continues and says, who made them male and female. So that's the verse that you chose to quote for your Transgender Day of Visibility. Why don't you read the verse all the way to the end of the verse? That may not help you.
Well, these things have become popular, I think, in the last decade, right? So even like at high schools, there's days of... Do they call it Days of Visibility or Days of... Didn't
Coming Out Day.
Coming Out Day or whatever. It's becoming just kind of commonplace within the culture at high schools and middle schools and things like that. Which, in general, the point is that we should be caring for people, but there's now a narrative that is out there that you must agree to, and if you don't agree to that, then you're hateful or whatever it is, and that's problematic.
Yeah.
So, and then it was just kind of stark to see this kind of again set against the whole Easter weekend. That normally, if you went back however many years, Easter would have been very prominent, and now it was a footnote.
I saw a picture of the New York City skyline from 1957 or 58 with, I think it was the Empire State Building and then one of the Twin Towers and then another building with 3 crosses lit up that way in honor of Holy Week and Easter weekend, thinking, man, this would never fly today. So here's these 3 crosses.
Sorry, that was
New
the
York
other
City
thing.
Skyline.
In New York City over the weekend, they lit them up with the Pride Progress flag colors.
Right. Yeah,
over the whole Easter weekend.
Yeah, 60 years later, we got some different lights.
So this
is
where culture is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we should be aware of it.
Yeah. Saw that in the news.
All right, so that's in the news. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
I heard on the news there was a 5-legged lamb today, and they named it Spider Lamb. So
is
pretty
that
cool.
Right?
in the news.
5 legs.
End it right there.
Like a mutation.
I guess. Yeah.
Spider
leg.
Just in time for Passover, so they can slaughter the 5-legged Passover, the spider lamb.
Passover is coming up towards the end of April this year, and you guys had quite a nice Passover celebration while I was ill. You had a special Friday night evening service, Messiah and the Passover. So that was a lot of fun. Mitch Glazier was here. You guys enjoy that?
Very cool. Very engaging speaker.
Johnny liked it.
I liked it. I thought it was great. I sat front row. Not normally a front row guy, but I sat front row.
Okay.
Right? And I thought he was great. Just a lot of perspective you don't get on, that was Jesus, at the Passover. Mm-hmm. And especially coming from someone who is Jewish, who obviously now believes in Jesus as his savior. So it's just really neat to hear the perspective on all the little things, on really cool. I do love a lot of the traditional stuff that the Jewish religion kind of takes to, and just a lot of the cool little things that they teach their children so that they will always remember. Right. I feel like there's a lot of remember this, so we will say this over and over so that we can't forget what God has done. So I thought it was a great special night.
Very narrative culture. I was thinking on Friday night that actually over the last couple of weeks, even though we had a guest speaker on the 24th on Palm Sunday, we had the Friday night, and then we had Easter. All of them really kind of hit on Luke themes, even though we kind of put a pause on going through Luke as we were. I saw that. So we had Luke, kind of the Luke 15, the prodigal with Christopher Yuan. Then we had the Luke 22 with Mitch. And then, of course, we did Luke 24 yesterday.
Sticking with Luke
Monday.
This year.
Luke. Very Lucan. It's a Lucan year.
I like it. So, hey, Tim, did you get invited up to be the taste tester for the bricks or for the
No, I was not
I did see you showing him some pictures, though.
I do. Maybe I'll put that on the screen
Tim,
right now.
How many years ago was this picture?
This was circa 2013. It's me.
Okay.
In a bright pink shirt. Up there with Mitch Glazer in the outfit, and there's drapes rocked. over the organ pipes.
A certain talent to rock a pink shirt.
Thank you, Bob.
And you have that talent, Tim.
You do.
I heard it's genetic.
There wasn't as many volunteers this time. I saw that he invited Amy up to do the candles, but other than that, I didn't see anybody get invited.
Well, because he was intentionally trying to be less funny, I guess. Maybe the volunteers and add in with the humor,
add more comedy.
Right, I can see that.
He was still pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. All right, so that's in the news. I think we're finished there. So do you mind if we move on to the questions?
Questions.
Do we have any questions, Tim? If there's no questions, or you
negative, no questions. Ask questions, people.
All right. If there's no questions, we can go on right to the sermon from Sunday, and
we'll have to provide the questions.
You'll have to provide the questions. So I'll turn it over to you now, Pastor Dave, to bring the interrogation for Sunday.
Okay.
And
well, here we are.
You had done a little bit of work on it with me, and then I had to take it over.
We are reviewing our Easter weekend message. Thank you, Pastor Bob, for delivering the word in my absence. We were in Luke 24 this year. There are 4 distinct sections of Luke chapter 24. Everybody outlines it the same way. It's always the tomb, the road, the room, and the mountain. And Bob chose to focus in on the road. And so, Bob, can you give us a 60-second flyover of what was Easter on the road and the message all about?
Well, we decided to go with on the road because we were in the section of on the road with Jesus, so that just naturally made sense. So we talked about, really the heavy emphasis was verse 15 and 16, that Jesus comes up to these disciples who are walking on the road to Emmaus, and they don't recognize him. And all along the road, he's teaching them things, and they don't see him. And we used the theme of Where's Waldo? So some of you may have found Waldo in your seats. I had a few nice comments about that. I had some kids come up that were looking for Waldo.
Is Waldo still popular now with like your kids' age? Is this still a thing?
I don't know. I just know I went to Barnes & Noble and they had a Waldo section. So I got them. Yep. I thought about that.
It's telling.
Did we have Waldo when you were growing up?
Yeah, we definitely had Waldo.
Okay.
But I didn't know that Waldo was still around.
Waldo's here. He's still here. He makes his way to each subsequent generation.
He hasn't passed.
That's right. He gets passed down.
Just got to find him.
That's right. Which
Very
I could
good.
give you guys if you want to try and find him while I'm doing this recap.
I think he's like originated with my generation when I was a kid, though.
He's been around for quite some time.
He wasn't that old.
And he doesn't age. He's still the same age as he was.
He looks the same. Yeah.
So
it's got the white and red hat, the stripes.
Yeah. So anyway, so we talked about the theme of this was being on the road, looking for Jesus, and we talked about how Jesus teaches us to have broken hearts and foolish hearts, and ultimately we want burning hearts. So we walked through each of those sections. When Jesus first comes up to the disciples, they don't recognize him, and he asks them what happened, and it says that they paused and they looked sad. And so we talked about how when we're going on the road, a lot of times things happen, events happen, and we need to take some stock as to what those things are. And then secondly, a lot of times we solve those not in the right ways because we have foolish hearts, which actually was going to be your point, Pastor Dave, in the message. Foolish
wasn't meant to be, my friend.
Foolish people who are slow of heart, slow to believe. And then, of course, the last one was burning hearts. After the disciples finally see who Jesus is, it says that their hearts were burning on that road to follow after him. And so that was our main thing. Believe, let Jesus impact your heart, and all of us are going somewhere. Are we going to let Jesus interrupt our day to speak to us? So there you go.
Very good. So Johnny and Felicity, you guys got to experience Easter Sunday and Luke chapter 24. What was your impressions of this passage for this year? What stuck out to you guys?
I think just the idea of our lives are so busy and we aren't really truly searching for Jesus in a lot of moments. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something maybe we've been even talking about recently, just how busy we can get. We even been fasting this year at times, and even those days of fasting, it's like, oh, I forgot I was fasting because I was so busy. I didn't have time to pray. I didn't have time to kind of focus my heart on the Lord. So even on things you're trying to do on purpose, you can get so busy and forget the thing you're doing on purpose that day. So I think for me, really, in a busy
Listen, guys,
season
if
of
you're
life,
fasting and you're so busy you forget you're fasting, you're too busy. That's
a good one.
that is
full
true.
stop.
It is. It is.
Well,
That's busy.
yes.
I will tell you, this was interesting to me. I had several people come up to me and say that they were in tears because the point when I had the Waldo and I was hiding the Waldo,
They were in tears because they couldn't find Waldo.
kind of.
Where is
he?
Well, I tied it in with like, let's not play Where's Waldo, let's play Where's Jesus. And the point was, Waldo's under your seat and you didn't know he was there. Some of you found him. And a lot of times we're walking through life on the road and we're so busy, we don't see Jesus because we're not looking for him. And that was the point that I made that apparently moved some people to tears.
I do
which,
have a
you know,
do you have a question on kind of one of that parts is they were kept from recognizing Jesus. I don't know if I'm forgetting, forgive me. Did you go into explanation as to they didn't recognize Jesus because they were just so busy and they weren't looking, or did they not recognize Jesus because the Lord like veiled their eyes from realizing it was Jesus? And if so, why?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't go into that amount of depth with that, but it doesn't really say.
Okay.
I
think
have a theory.
All right, well, why don't you give the theory over there, Pastor Dave?
This is
You
totally...
didn't get to preach the sermon, so you can answer the question.
This is not necessarily the case, but here's my theory. So,
Okay.
all of the Gospels are written for our benefit. We read them not just for the first century followers, but for people of the 21st century, right? They were kept from recognizing Christ, and I think really it's about the Spirit opening our eyes, right? We can look, but God's got to do a work there. But the manner in which they discovered Christ was the same way you and I discover Christ. And it wasn't because he was right there walking alongside of them on the road. Just like we don't have him physically walking alongside of us on the road. They discovered him in the scriptures, and they discovered him in the breaking of the bread. That's how they discovered. And as soon as they recognized it was him, he vanished. They recognized him when he explained all of the Old Testament to them and how he was found in the law, the prophets, and the Psalms. And their hearts were burning, thinking about Christ in the scriptures. And then when they sat down and the bread was broken, they saw something about that broken bread, and they realized this is Christ. And as soon as they recognized who he was, he vanished. So I think the story is there, and their eyes were kept from him, from knowing it was him, so that we could know we can encounter Christ in the same powerful, burning way that they did. We don't have to have him walking alongside of us on the road. We can see him in the scriptures, and we can see him in the broken bread too.
Well, but I would say though the reason
he missed preaching Sunday. Let me tell you,
the reason that we often don't look for it like that is because we're so busy with things we think are important. That we don't bother to look for him and seek for him in the ways that we should. So. Maybe that answers it. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it was just something I was curious when we were going through it.
It's it's a good question. Now, what's interesting about this passage, we didn't get into this as much, but this is a very important passage in terms of how you read the Bible, because some people will not really even, a lot of people won't preach from the Old Testament because they would say the Old Testament isn't as beneficial. But this passage is what people would point to say there's actually a lot of merit to finding Christ throughout the entirety of the Scriptures. This is a really important passage for that way of reading the Bible. Not everybody sees it that way.
Christocentric focus.
A Christo redemptive hermeneutical focus on reading the Bible. So, yeah. Because a lot of people will preach the Old Testament in terms of moral stories, right? David and Goliath and things like that. Or do you see them as all pointing towards the gospel narrative of itself? I
think, as you mentioned in the Jesus Storybook Bible,
yes,
every story ends with the rescuer is coming.
Right.
So that is a classic. I actually enjoyed reading that to you guys for my own sake.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys enjoyed it too, but it was kind of like for me.
It is.
I am. It is.
You really want to read that.
I was looking forward to Bible story time.
I know.
I'm going through it again with my youngest. My favorite is she goes, I want to read Jesus, and she'll stop. Like we'll reading when we get to the New Testament. You have the Jesus stories. I'll be reading, and she goes, Daddy, there's Jesus. So it's pretty cool.
Wow, Zoe.
That's Zoe.
How old is Zoe now?
2.5. So she's digging it.
The eyes of a child.
Yeah. I did mention the other one, which is a newer Kevin DeYoung the biggest Bible storybook, which kind of gets at kind of the older elementary ages and is a little bit more in depth, but does similar type of things. Yeah.
Not familiar with that one, but I'm sure it's good. Although
It's good.
the animations remind me of like the Where the Wild Things Are kind of style.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that. I went through that one with Jenna a year or two ago.
Good stuff.
So it's longer, but yeah, it's good. Got a prayer for you at the end of every chapter, questions. Yeah.
Very good.
Boom. All right, what other questions?
Yeah. So, Felicity, what stuck out to you? Johnny talked about an observation. What stuck out to you regarding the Easter passage?
I guess my question is, why would Jesus disappear? Like, why would he just vanish? Like, what's the point of that? Like, why would he have to leave? Like, why did he do that? Do we have any idea why he did that?
Pastor Bob?
We don't get an explanation, but maybe the question will be, why did Jesus even go back to heaven in the first place? So he goes, and then he leaves at like 40 days after Pentecost, he ascends, and he's not physically here with us. Why did he do that? Why did he just stay? At some level, it's all part of God's plan. Now, he disappeared for them right away, but he didn't totally
he didn't leave.
go, right? So
Yeah.
maybe he had other things he had to do. He had gotten them to a point where they actually saw and they believed, and now I got to go on to the next
work
people,
is done
right?
here.
Yeah. It's like, so speaking of books you're reading to your kids, Chronicles of Narnia does the same thing with Aslan. Aslan takes you so far, and then Aslan's like, he's gone, and he'll show up when he needs to, that type of thing, Aslan the lion.
Yeah.
So...
And then I had another question. So it says, Johnny was kind of talking about this, but it says their eyes were kept from recognizing Jesus, right? So if their eyes were kept from recognizing Jesus, then, and Jesus obviously knows that they don't recognize them, then if possibly it's not, them closing their own eyes, it's their eyes being closed for them, then it kind of seems like in verse 25 he says, and he said to them, O foolish ones and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. And he kind of goes into his explanation. Was he saying, O foolish ones, in kind of like a condemning way? Like, how do you not realize this? Because I guess for me that was a little bit confusing because they couldn't realize it if their eyes were being kept. So I guess that was one of my other questions.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tension throughout scriptures. Another parallel passage to that point would be the whole idea of Pharaoh's heart being hardened. God hardened Pharaoh's heart. So did Pharaoh do that on his own accord, or did God actually, make him do that? So I think there's a bit of a tension there, but I guess I would say that God does those things to teach us stuff. And maybe it wasn't the right time for their eyes to be open. They had to see all those other things he had to teach them before the veil would be removed.
Okay.
I don't know if you would add to that.
I guess it's hard to know the tone. How did Jesus count? We only have the text that says foolish ones and slow of heart to believe. Was that a tender way of saying that? Was it a rebuke? Was it an exhortation? Was he yelling? Was he quietly? It's hard to know exactly how he was coming across there. But we can know that our own foolishness and our own slowness of heart is a barrier for us in being able to see how God is present with us and how he's at work in our lives. So we can take that as a gentle rebuke for ourselves, right? I can be foolish. I can be slow of heart to believe.
So maybe kind of like what you were saying, Pastor Bob, maybe Jesus wanted them to understand almost with their intellects the scripture and how that points to Jesus before just seeing his face and being like, you're right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like maybe Jesus wanted, I think Jesus knew that by revealing himself to them, they would immediately believe and they would immediately know it's God. At least that's my experience with God being revealed to me. It's like, I don't doubt anymore. I believe you. But maybe Jesus kind of, before he revealed his face to them, maybe he wanted to help them understand like the biblical side of it, the scriptural side of it before revealing his face. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you made me think about this. I think there might be truths that we need to believe, but we're not quite at the place where if we heard it, we would hear it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you probably have had that happen in your life. Like, 5 years ago, if this thing happened to me, I wouldn't receive it the same way if I did now.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they're walking on along the road. He's revealing and teaching all these things that if he had just maybe revealed himself initially, it wouldn't have taught them what they needed to learn through the walking of the road.
Yeah.
And you also made me think about the verse in 1 Peter where he talks about I'm trying to find the exact reference, but where he talks about even though you have not seen him, you love him. So this idea that Jesus is not present physically, but yet we still have an affection for him because of our hearts being changed and transformed.
Yeah.
Um,
So it made me think about that too.
Yeah.
So here's a question. Moving from the foolish heart, what is a burning heart like? What is that experience?
Ask the Mormons.
They do say, I have a burning
in the bosom, right?
And so this is their kind of the Mormon version of
Regeneration.
testimony of the Spirit or something. But I don't think we're talking about that, though. So what is it? What is this phrase? Our hearts were burning within us. What were they?
I think there was
what were they experiencing? Have you experienced it? What is it? Can we
like a stirring of? I hear you saying that. That's resonating. Like something is different. Makes me want to do something. Is kind of how I pictured that. I would have to go back.
Made them want to walk 7 more miles.
Right
back to wherever they were going.
And then, hey, don't leave. Stay with us. Right.
Yeah.
After walking, it's not like, all right, I'll see you later. No, stay.
Mm-hmm.
There was a hunger for something more.
What do you guys think about the burning hearts? Is that something that resonated with you? Have you experienced the burning heart? What is it?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's really similar to a saying, like, my heart is burning, my heart is on fire. It kind of reminds me of that scene in Acts where, like, tongues of fire came on the disciples.
Mm-hmm.
I think when God is revealed to you and his truth is revealed to you in such a way that's, you can't unsee it, kind of like what we were learning about on Sunday. There is this sense of like fire. There is this sense of like, this is something that isn't going out. This is something that makes me incredibly excited to live out and share. Like it's something that's almost bigger than you. It's bigger than yourself. That's how I would describe it. I think that's happened a lot in our youth group this year too. Just watching hearts get set on fire every Wednesday has just been so amazing. I think that term is something that I've been learning a lot this year.
Well, I mean, also there's I'm thinking of the passage in Revelation. I think it's for the Church of Laodicea, about your heart being, is your heart cold, or has the ice melted away from your heart and it's set on as the image that's used there?
Lukewarm.
Are you lukewarm or are you ablaze?
Church at Ephesus, right?
Yeah. So the Greek word is kaio, or a form of kaio, and the definition would be to cause to be lighted on, or to be on fire, right? So there's a burning, and to be burning, you got to be on. It's not heartburn. You'll literally be set on fire for something that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually some criticism of using the terms. Recently, I've been seeing of saying I'm on fire for Jesus, because some people will quote, well, fire in the word is actually gearing towards hell, and we shouldn't be using the same words associated with Sheol and hell, and use that for that, and then also use it for, my passion for my faith. So there actually is some criticism out there, which I don't think really holds up too fast when you read other parts of Scripture. But yeah, I think the burning heart is, I think it's just getting excited, as Pastor Dave says. I'm getting fired up right now when he's preaching, and you can't control, like you're elated with joy over what's taking place.
Yeah. Can we insert that video of Pastor Dave and his I'm so fired up?
Tim?
Right here. I heard it right here.
I'm so fired up. It's unreal.
This is what I'm talking about. Yeah, we see it, as Felicity was saying, seeing it all year at youth group, just people. Your heart burns when you see other people see the Lord for who he is.
Yeah.
And especially yourself as well. When you start seeing the Lord for who he is, your heart just burns with passion. Heart burns with excitement.
Well, remember that the modifying of heart in the Bible is the center of who you are. It's the center of your person. So all that's within you is wanting to is connected with the Savior. I think is the point.
So I'll read a little piece of writing that Blaise Pascal sewed into the coat that he used to wear, and it's an experience that he had that he didn't really tell anybody about. But on November 23rd, 1654, between 10:30 p.m. and 12:30 at midnight, Pascal had this experience, and he wrote it down, and then he kept this like sewn into his coat for the rest of his life. So here's what he wrote: Fire. God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, not of the philosophers and of the learned. Certitude, certitude, feeling, joy, peace, God of Jesus Christ. My God and your God. Your God will be my God. Forgetfulness of the world and of everything except God. He is only found by the ways taught in the gospel. Grandeur of the human soul, righteous Father, the world has not known you, but I have known you. Joy, 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 tears of joy. I have departed from him. They've forsaken me, the fount of living water. My God, will you leave me? Let me not be separated from him forever. This is eternal life, that they know you, the one true God, and the one that you sent, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. I left him, I fled him, renounced, crucified. Let me never be separated from him. He is only kept securely by the ways taught in the gospel. Renunciation, total and sweet, complete submission to Jesus Christ and to my director, eternally enjoy for a day's exercise on the earth. May I not forget your words. Amen.
That was a big coat.
Yeah. So he wrote that
That's
down
awesome.
and then kept it sewn in his coat for the rest of his
maybe
life.
It's pretty cool.
Whatever experience he had there. I think he had a burning heart.
Yeah.
And he never wanted to forget it. Like, I had this experience with the true God. And he just kept it with him.
A shorter example would be, of course, John Wesley, who when he was saved said, "My heart was strangely warmed."
Yeah.
That's how he described his conversion experience. So there is this image that's there throughout history.
Let's keep the hearts burning.
There you go.
Any last words about the sermon, Pastor Bob? As we move back in time,
I just
to
hope
Luke
if you
chapter
haven't
12
found
now.
Jesus, that you would indeed find Jesus
Amen.
within the scriptures. So that was, of course,
Once
the
you
main
find
thing.
him, you can't unfind him.
Once you find,
Yeah.
once you see him, you can't unsee him.
Yeah.
Find him. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for bringing that passage. We're now going to turn back the clock and go back to Luke chapter 12
Back
this
to 12.
week.
All right.
So
Are we back to demons yet, or?
this passage is about Jesus' second coming and his words of warning and his words of blessing and his words of rewards and punishment that will occur at the end of time when he comes to judge the quick and the dead, speaking of creeds. So look forward to Luke 12 this coming Sunday, and that is our sermon recap moment. So, Tim, we've come to that part of our program where we talk about sprinting. We've got a couple of runners here on the show
We
today.
got a four-man relay here.
We got some serious heat.
Each
got
take
a
going on.
take a leg.
4x400 here.
4x4 relay.
Pass the baton.
I
I'm
love
not
it.
the anchor, I can tell you that.
All right,
Only
so
Jesus can handle that.
today's Theology Sprint, I think, is important because it's something that's come up, I think, more and more when Easter comes each year in our society. So I'm interested to hear your guys' response to this. Given, make sure I have the right one. Okay. Given the historical and cultural evolution of religious practices, how do we reconcile the pagan origins of many Easter traditions like eggs, bunnies, all that, with the Christian celebration of Christ's resurrection?
Okay.
Like, is it okay to do it? Is it okay to do that?
I guess that's what it's asking. Like, how do we balance both? How do we reconcile it?
Let's take a
What
crack
the
at
question's
it.
asking.
Yeah, it's a similar question
Is that
about
fun?
Halloween and Christmas and all that.
Yeah. So, Easter typically has its origin with the god Ishtar. There was a fertility cult that was part of ancient cultures, and Christianity began to spread rapidly over the first 300 years or so. They were celebrating the Lord's Day and Resurrection Sunday. That was one of the earliest celebrations they had way before Christmas and stuff like that, because the resurrection was really the centerpiece of the Christian faith. And as it began to spread across these different cultures, sometimes what would happen is the Christians would take elements of those cultures and then redeem them and baptize them, if you will, and colonize them for the sake of Christ and his gospel. So we took symbols like the spring vernal equinox of the days lengthening, and we use that to symbolize the life that Christ brings. Or we symbolize things like eggs, which are the symbol of life, and we said, well, Christ brings life. And so we would take these symbols that were pagan in origin, and then we began to infuse them with symbols that were more conducive to Christianity. So can it be overplayed? Can it be overdone? Yes. I think to the degree that those symbols become a distraction from the truth of the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, that's a problem. So be careful about that. Let's put Christ in his proper place. But I do think there's a place for fun, and activities can glorify the Lord as we celebrate Easter together with all generations and all ages. So we always kind of incorporated those things, but kept the focus at the center and kept Christ at the center. Can we overdo it? Yeah. If your total obsession is the helicopter egg drop and that's all you want to do on Easter Sunday, then you're kind of missing the main thing.
If you're throwing elbows on the field to get the eggs, a little too much. Well, it's true. It
doesn't always bring out the best in people. Egg hunts.
Yeah, and I think that's a great answer.
Source of fleshly pride.
Yeah, that's a great answer. But the same thing is true with Christmas. So the reason we have the Christmas date is related to the winter solstice, and the Christmas tree was originally a pagan thing, but that's kind of been redeemed with the lights and everything to point to the light of the world. People usually use that. But it can be overdone if it takes you away from the manger or the cross.
Yeah.
So
very good. Hopefully, Tim, that gives some clarity on the question there.
Absolutely.
All right.
Good question, Tim. All right.
Good job, Tim.
Final thoughts before we do a scene change?
Thank you guys so much for being on Behind the Pulpit.
Great
question.
We got to have them on here for some questions, man. Good questions.
Yes.
We don't usually get this many good questions.
Nicely done.
We'll be back.
We will be.
All right.
All right. Thank you guys for being here today.
Pleasure
Thanks
to
for
be
joining
here.
us for this Behind the Pulpit and Fresh Wave crossover. We're about to go and do a Fresh Wave episode, and we'll be talking about the Trinity. So check that out, and we hope to see you again next week. Go look for Waldo.